Welcome, one and all, to the Prince for You album chat. And man, I tell you, it's a little bit of we got to turn down some of this stuff. This is kind of what we want to make sure of, that this is the whole purpose of this, is to make sure that we are don't have any echoes, that we're working. I actually have two different laptops that are going tonight. I have this one that I'm looking at right here. Plus, on top of that, I also have this one over here. And this one over here is basically when the music is playing, I'll be able to actually watch the chat over in the chat area and be able to talk to you guys while the music is playing without talking over the music. And it like, this whole thing is just, it's crazy. There's a bunch of things going on here, and hopefully we'll be able to get moving here. And welcome to the pre-show. This is the pre-show, just so we're clear. This is the pre-show. And the whole reason why we wanted to do the pre-show is because I wanted to be able to say hello. I wanted to be able to talk to you guys. We're going to be starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 20 minutes from right now. And I know it's a good bit in advance from 8 o'clock, but we needed to make sure that everything was going as planned. And on top of that, I also need to go up to the broadcast, up to the show, up to the Funked Up app. So anybody that's on the Funked Up app, please let me know. I'll be broadcasting to the Funked Up app here just momentarily. I'm not on it just yet. I have not clicked that button just yet because I don't want to interrupt music and whatnot. So I hope everybody is doing well tonight. Tonight we are having quite an undertaking for sure. This is going to be an amazing undertaking, and that is to do the album chat for Prince's album For You, which I've already done before in the past years ago. And one of the things that, you know, as time kind of progresses, you find out new information, and there's new things that you find out that you weren't privy to previously. And so you got to add it in. And then that list just kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And to kind of give you an idea, I'm not exactly sure how long the For You album is. I guess I could find out pretty quickly. But one of the things I can tell you is that in regards to For You, is the original album chat only took like an hour and 15 minutes, and was like less than an hour and a half that we did the full album chat. I'm going to take myself out of this. It was less than an hour and a half for the full album chat last time I did it. This time around, it's going to be significantly longer. Just so we're clear, it's going to be significantly longer. There's a lot more pages. There's a lot more information. There's a lot more backstories and a lot more music. And so you're going to learn something new tonight, and you're going to walk away going, wow, I just didn't know that. Here's what I will tell you. Even though I am broadcasting live right now on Facebook and YouTube, I will keep this up as long as I possibly can, but I can tell you that once we start playing, now when I'm talking, there won't be an issue. But the second that I start playing music, which is probably going to be, I don't know how long in, but to kind of give you an idea, the preliminary information about the background and how he got the record deal and all the stuff that preceded him getting the deal with For You, there's a lot of information. Just so we're clear, there's a lot of information. And so I want to make sure that you understand that you're probably feeling like you're home free watching this on Facebook or on YouTube. But once I start playing music on Facebook, it's going to kick us off. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that. It's going to kick you off on Facebook. First, it's going to disconnect all of you viewers. You might be able to watch the video, but it's not going to let you engage. It's not going to let you interact. And it may just cut it off completely. And YouTube is kind of hit or miss. YouTube normally does not go through that process of kicking users off or stopping a video broadcast, unless it's just really very, very blatant. And in this particular case, it will be. So we're going to be playing full songs, and we're going to be sitting here listening to full songs. So that being said, I want to make sure that you guys are aware that, that's the reality of this. I don't know what to do about it. other than to tell you that we have 2 opportunities for you guys to be able to watch this show. The first is going to be on Mixcloud. Go to mixcloud.com/Funkatopia. That's MIXCLOUD.com/Funkatopia. You can also go and download the Funked Up app. You download our Funked Up app and go to Purple Yoda Radio, which is the 24/7 Prince radio station, and you will be able to hear this broadcast unfettered. It's going to go all the way through with no problems, no hiccups, no anything. So I would suggest going ahead and switching over to Mixcloud now. I know some of you folks, Andre, I know that you are a Facebook junkie. I know there's a lot of people that are Facebook junkie. Most of the people that are on this show or that watch this show are fans of Facebook, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will tell you that you will not be able to watch the whole entire show, because once I start playing music, you guys are going to be kicked off by Facebook. It's inevitable. And it's not just me, it's the big guys too. I was just, I guess it was probably like late last year, I was watching Tony Robbins it's Tony friggin' Robbins, and he was doing this massive event via Facebook Live. And he was even saying online, he says, we can't play any copyrighted music because Facebook will kick us off. And I was like, it's Tony friggin' Robbins. Who do you have to be to I guess it has something to do with the live broadcast that causes a little bit of a problem. However, what's good is that sometimes you can upload a video to Facebook after the fact, and it's okay. It's not an issue. It will let you play it. We'll see. But for right now, I would head over to mixcloud.com/Funkatopia, and I would watch the show from there. You'll be able to engage. You'll be able to talk and whatnot. And I'll actually have to open up a Mixcloud window to kind of see the chat room and make sure that, because I don't think that the Mixcloud chat area filters over to this system that we use right here, which is called StreamYard. Now, I know that you guys are like, it is what it is. StreamYard allows us to be able to, I'm going to mute, allows us to be able to pull up all this great social media, different as far as the connectivity to Facebook, to YouTube, to Mixcloud, to Twitch, to a variety of different places. But for some reason, it cannot pull in the audio, or it cannot pull in the chat functionality from Mixcloud. So Carrie Martinez, I see you over there in Mixcloud World. Lori, I see you over there in Mixcloud World. Not a bunch of people over in Mixcloud right now. Most of you are over in Facebook or on YouTube. So yes, get the Funked Up app. You'll be able to listen. And matter of fact, I am going to go live on the Funked Up app here in about 5 minutes. We are in a pre-show right now. I am going to be starting the album chat for Prince's album For You at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time sharp, which is in 14 minutes from right now, because it is a sizable album chat. I did not know that it was going to be that long, but as I was pulling information together, and even as I'm editing it, I'm thinking, can I take that out? I mean, should I take that out? Is it important to the story? And ultimately, yep, it's important to the story. All of it's important to the story. So again, please go to mixcloud.com/Funkatopia or listen on the Funked Up app. Please do it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put this across the bottom right now so that you guys actually, so anybody that comes in after the fact and happens to go to YouTube and somehow sees the video still playing, but can't interact with it, they're going to see that. And that way they'll know where to go. And man, I hope you guys are excited about tonight. I know that I'm coming on here early. What I can tell you is that it's going to be a lot of fun. And I was a Prince junkie. A lot of you guys think that, oh my gosh, Chris knows everything. I really don't. There's a bunch of stuff I don't know. Matter of fact, as I was doing research for this album chat and to kind of make sure that I was as, I guess, as thorough as possible, I actually went back a few years ago and I pulled up the interviews with Alan Leeds. I pulled up the interviews with Owen Husney. I pulled up the interviews with Chris Moon that we had done, and even reviewed those. And the stories that they were telling, I completely forgot about. I mean, because once you get into that interview mode, I can absolutely see how this happens. I heard some other talk show host it happens to talk show hosts all the time. They'll get on and, over the years, they interview dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people over their career. And there's just no way that you can just retain all that information. It's just it's impossible. And for me, I'm only a few years removed from those interviews. And I was like, I totally forgot about that story. So I wanted to make sure that all the things that were relevant to this album for you was in here in this album chat, and you guys are going to have an absolute fun time. It's going to be great. Again, we're going to start here in about 10 minutes. In about 1 minute, I'm going to click the button to go live on Funked Up. So if you guys are on the Funked Up app, if you can please tell me in the comments section if it's coming through clear, everything is good. I'll even do a little bit of a test, music test. Matter of fact, yesterday, what's funny is that yesterday when we were doing the music test and just testing all the audio, when we were doing the free for all last night, that was just it was just an event that we wanted to do just to kind of make sure that everything was working the way that it was supposed to. We played like little teeny small clips of Soft and Wet. Not even, it was like maybe 10-second clips, and Facebook started kicking people off. It was ridiculous. And then YouTube, when they processed the video, that's what YouTube does. YouTube goes through the whole entire video, and once you click stop on the live, then it goes through its video processing mode. And once it does that, that's when it identifies the copyrighted material and says, nope, you can't do that. So this has been a very arduous process for us, because one of the things that's frustrating, and you heard me mention this last night, is that we are ASCAP licensed. So it's not a cheap expense. So when you hear music on the Funked Up app, whether it be on the Funked Up side or whether it be on the Purple Yoda radio side, when you hear music on there, the artists are getting paid for those plays, just like they do when you listen on terrestrial radio. But the problem is that even though I have the ASCAP contract and have everything documented, there is nothing in place for me to go to Facebook or go to YouTube and say, here is my license. Can you stop doing this? Can you stop kicking us off? They don't do that. They just simply don't have a way to do it. What they want you to do is they want to kick you off, and they want to make you go through the process. And then you have to say, wait, no, I have a license, or I have the rights to be able to play this music. And then you have to send it. And then it goes through this process, and then they release the video, and it could happen in a day. And sometimes, in most cases, it happens in like a couple weeks. And that's how frustrating it is. So I'm a little bit concerned on some of the side of things. Like on August 24th, as you probably heard me mention, we are doing Michael Gabriel's album release. Michael Gabriel's new album, Genesis, is going to be released. It's going to hit the streets. I believe they said the 25th or 26th. So we're having an album release party that's actually going to be happening, or maybe it's happened a couple of days before. I can't remember. But we're having an album release party right here on Funkatopia. It's going to be across all the different channels. It's going to be on Unfunked Up. And Michael Gabriel and some special guests are going to be here, and they're going to be talking through the album, and we're going to be playing the music, and they're going to be commenting on, how it was written, all the intricacies that went into writing songs. And because of this whole snafu with Facebook and YouTube, it's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. So I don't want to waste my voice too much more. Again, for those of you tuning in, it is a pre-show. We're in the middle of a pre-show right now. We're going to be starting the album chat in 8 minutes. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and click the button here on the Funked Up app. And if you guys will tell me whether or not I'm coming through, that would be great. I'm going to start it right now. Hello. Welcome one and all to Funked Up, Funkatopia Live. We are actually broadcasting live from Atlanta, and tonight we are going to be doing the album chat for Prince's album For You. We're going to be doing this at 8 o'clock. We went ahead and connected, and just wanted to make sure that everything is working on the audio side of things. And from what I can see, everything is working fine. I'm going to wait for a little bit of confirmation from people in the chat area that may happen to have the app on. Let me know if you can hear me okay on the app, and also let me know if there's any type of echo or if there's any type of feedback or anything like that. We want to make sure that all the audio stuff is worked out, and that's going to be the preliminary Carrie on Mixcloud informs me, yes, it is working. Thank you guys so much. Brooklyn 265 calling in from South Glastonbury, Connecticut. Tech Illustrator 1. Okay, they're in here. Funky Wolf's in there. Salutations, brother Funky Wolf. And again, I've already mentioned that Carrie Martinez is in the house. Lori's in the house. Yes, that's fantastic. Everything is coming through as intended on the Purple Yoda radio. So I am very excited for this, because in just 5 minutes, we're going to go ahead and break into the album chat for Prince's album For You, his debut album. And this is good, because most of this time I had expected and anticipated that we were going to be dealing with a bunch of technical issues and audio issues and whatnot, but apparently that's not the case. So I think if Jeff came in and added into it, maybe it might be a little bit tricky, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently everything's working fine. So that's great. That's really good to know that everything sounds great on the Funked Up app. Matter of fact, let's do a little bit of a test here on the audio and make sure the audio on the app is working too, and is also working here. Let me know if you guys can hear this. Let's try this. I'm assuming you guys can hear this okay. All right, that's a little taste. Again, I don't want to get carried away. I know that's a little bit lower than my vocals are. I totally get it, but as long as you guys can hear it, that's all that matters, and that is what I want to hear. All right, fantastic. We are going to be starting right at 8 o'clock. It's 5 minutes from right now, probably actually a little bit closer to 4 minutes right now. This is going to be an amazing, Tech Illustrator 1. Caroline, are you really a tech illustrator? I really need to know that. That's actually pretty cool, because there's some things that I've always wanted to get illustrated that are tech related. So Caroline, I might have to talk to you. Anyways, this is fantastic. Again, I want to make sure that you guys understand there's a scroll happening along the bottom. If you're watching via Facebook and via YouTube, you're going to be okay for about the first 30 to 45 minutes of the show. Yes, the preliminary stuff is probably that long as far as the stories are concerned, before we even start playing music. But once we start playing music, that's when all things are going to go haywire on Facebook and on YouTube. So please understand, it's best that you go ahead and jump ship now and go over to mixcloud.com/Funkatopia, or pull up the Funked Up app and listen via there. I have the chat room up here on Mixcloud, so I can actually see everything that's over here. Caroline, yes, awesome. That's great. You're a tech illustrator. We're going to have to talk. Lawrence, Teresa is in the house too. This is great. So we've got a bunch of folks that are already in Mixcloud. We got a bunch of folks that are on Facebook and YouTube. And I hope that you guys are going to be perfectly fine and nothing's going to be problematic. So, but it is what it is. So I don't know. The only part that I'm trying to figure out from an audio perspective is that I obviously want you guys are going through the process of chatting here and asking me questions here in the comment area. I just want you guys to understand I am not going to be ignoring you, but this album chat is very detailed and thorough. So I really can't stop that often to read all the stuff that's going on here. Yes, Karen, it's right across, it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. It's mixcloud.com/Funkatopia. Is that I'm not ignoring you, but I need to try to figure out a way to make sure that the audio, that you guys can hear me over on Mixcloud, or you can hear me on this laptop over here, because I want to be able to talk to you while the music's playing, but I don't want to talk over the music as far as the Funked Up app is concerned. I want it to be an experience where you're learning about the songs and whatever. And if it doesn't work out that way, that's perfectly fine. It is what it is. All right. So that all being said, we got 2 minutes to go. I am so glad that you guys are joining us. Thank you guys for jumping over to Mixcloud. Again, mixcloud.com/Funkatopia. And of course, also for the Funked Up app. And let's make sure that everything is going the way that it's supposed to, as far as your ability to be able to get in and whatnot. I assume that it is because I don't hear anybody complaining or fussing. So that is going to be, that's probably the best sign that you possibly can have. Let's see here. Oh, what's cool is that just as long as we're together, just played on Purple Yoda Radio before I interrupted. So sorry about that. So, all right, 1 minute to go, guys, to the album chat for Prince's For You debut album. I'm sorry, we're in the middle of a pre-show right now. We are going to start at 8 o'clock as promised. So everybody get a drink of water, do what you got to do. If you got to run to go to the restroom, do it real quick right now, because once we go into it, it's going to be a railroad. It's going to be literally a runaway train. There's so much information. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'll be totally honest. Again, as I mentioned, the first album chat that we did was an hour and a half, under an hour and a half. This is not going to be that. I'll just tell you right now, it's going to be longer than that, just so we're clear. All right, I got my water. We're good. You should make this happen. Is everybody ready? All right, everybody needs to jump ship over to mixcloud.com/Funkatopia. If you have no choice and you need to watch on Funkatopia, watch on Facebook, that's perfectly fine. You can watch on Facebook. I'm not going to fight you on that. You can watch on Facebook, but once we start playing music, you'll figure out why it could be problematic. So I'm so glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining us over on Mixcloud. It's going to be a lot of fun, and let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a signal so that I have the ability to be able to edit this video. So give me just 5 seconds. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Funkatopia Live, and welcome to the official Prince album chat for his very first debut album, For You. We have done this broadcast before. We have done the album chat before. Actually, the album chat was pre-recorded, so it wasn't done in front of a live audience like we are right now. And the first time it was done, it was a very shortened version because we weren't really digging too far into some of the stories behind some of the songs and the preliminary stuff that happened before he actually got the deal to record this album. This particular one is not that. It is very extensive, so you need to know that that's the case. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the album chat for Prince's very first album, For You. This will be significantly different, as I said, from the first album chat. It's going to be significantly longer, so you just need to be ready for that. And since it's his first album, we should start by giving a little backstory as to who got him up to this point for recording this album in the get-go. I mean, from the start, from the very, very beginning. So enter a man by the name of Chris Moon, a guy that didn't want to go to college. He had some musical aspirations, but decided that he wanted his own studio. So he flew to Hong Kong to buy some cheap recording gear and to do just that, opened up his own studio. And that studio was called Moon Studios. However, Chris wants to write his own music, but he doesn't have a band. And he isn't very keen on working with a band anyways, for a variety of reasons, because he's under the impression that band members don't show up. And if you get too many people involved or too many people in the kitchen, that it's going to be one of those scenarios where people just, are just going to flake out. So he kind of puts his music aspirations on the back burner and wants to get his studio up and running. And in order to get his name out, he offers to let bands come into his studio and record for free. And when I was doing an interview with Chris years ago, I told him, I said, that is the worst business plan I've ever heard in my entire life. So you need to go back and listen to that interview that I did with Chris Moon, and also the interview that I did with Owen Husney. You can just go to Google and you can search for Owen Husney interview, Funkatopia, or Funkatopia Chris Moon interview. You'll be able to find him. Anyways, he's letting bands record for free in his studio. Lo and behold, as fate would have it, he gets called one day from a mother who is managing a band by the name of Champagne, not spelled like normal. It's Shampayne. And if I recall correctly, it was Andre Anderson's mother that was managing them. And Champagne featured some names that you may know. A then 17-year-old man by the name of Prince, his cousin Chaz Smith, and Andre Anderson, who I just mentioned, aka Andre Simone. So she wants Champagne to come into Chris's studio and record, and he agrees because he wants to get his name out there. So fast forward to a recording session where Champagne is in the Moon Studios recording. They take a break and they go across the street to an ice cream shop. Moon looks up and he sees Prince all alone in the studio, just sitting there playing bass guitar. Doesn't think anything about it. He kind of looks away, takes a bite of a sandwich, maybe reads a couple pages on a magazine, then looks back up, and then Prince is playing guitar. So he doesn't really think too much about that, looks away again, comes back, and then he realizes that Prince is on keyboards and then drums. And then it dawns on him as he realizes that as far as his music aspirations are concerned, maybe he doesn't need a band. He could just use Prince as his band. So Chris goes into the studio and asks him, how would you like to be famous? And of course, Prince just brushes him off with a grunt. And he then tells Prince, listen, I will teach you how to mix. I'll produce you. I'll package the product. I'll write the songs. And you can just play the music and sing it. And we'll put a demo tape together and then just see if we can make something happen for you. No cost. Free. Obviously, Prince is at full attention now, and he wants to record, but he doesn't have any money to do it. As far as studios, run the gamut, back in those days, anywhere from, $35 to $50 an hour and up back in the 70s. But, he had a good read on him. In my interview with him, Chris Moon, and also with Matt Thorne, Chris said the night before he would show up, I would sit down and I'd write 3 sets of lyrics for him to choose from and leave them on the piano. And his job when he showed up was to come in, and if he liked one, work on it. If not, tear it up, tell me, and I'll come up with another set. By the time I would show up, he would have worked out a guitar track and some kind of basic rhythm to one of those sets of lyrics, and that was it. So Chris was just starting out doing production work, but he knew enough to be able to teach Prince. I mean, until Prince eventually would surpass him. But the two of them also did a lot of experimental studio work trying to create new sounds. I mean, they would take vacuum hoses and they would spin them above their heads to make whooshing sounds and all kinds of weird and strange techniques. They were trying a variety of different things because they just wanted to be very, very different. And they were also doing radio jingles together for local businesses. And here's something that you probably didn't know, but Chris Moon says that he still has recordings of commercials that Prince did for a ladies' clothing store in Minnesota. And it was a ladies' clothing store by the name of Gigi's. And if you happen to live in Minneapolis during the late 70s, maybe you remember this ladies' clothing store named Gigi's. No one who did was aware that those early radio commercial recordings for Gigi's were Prince. Chris was paying Prince $100 a commercial, and Prince did about 5 or 6 of them, and most of them aired on TV, and most of them aired on radio, and they just kind of went all over the mix. Now, hold on. I'm pausing for a second. Some people are saying that they are the Mixcloud is showing offline. I'm not seeing that. I'm actually seeing a bunch of folks online, so I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping that's just a simple little scenario for you, and I hope it's not. I hope it's not an issue across the board. But if anybody else is having issues, please let me know. I need to know about those types of issues and document the time so I can edit out those videos and make sure that it's all taken care of. If you miss any part of this, it's perfectly okay. Just know that it will be edited and we'll put some more out. So anyways, that all being said. So again, Prince did about 5 or 6 commercials for this women's clothing store called Gigi's in Minneapolis that aired on local TV and radio. And Chris Moon apparently has those recording. But now Chris wants Prince to sing some of the songs that he's written with him. So he gets Prince in the studio to sing, and they run into a problem from the very first song that they try. When Prince begins to sing, nothing is coming through the monitors. Chris is watching Prince sing through the glass in the studio, and he can see him moving his mouth and singing, but barely anything is coming through the microphones. There's barely any level. So he's switching out cables and microphones, trying to figure out what's wrong, until he decides to go out into the studio while Prince is singing. And he finally realizes that Prince is singing just above a whisper. So Chris realizes that maybe he's not confident in his singing, and so he tries to work with him to kind of get him a little bit more comfortable, including singing along with him, which he admittedly does poorly, and nothing seems to be working to loosen him up. So Chris comes up with this grand idea to grab a pillow and a blanket from his room and have Prince lie down in the studio with the lights off until he's comfortable enough to sing loudly to be captured on recording. So I need to pause here because I'm going to be honest. When I first heard this story, I had reservations about, how much of this actually happened, mainly because I had seen so many photos of Prince performing in those early days, out in front of, some of those benefit events and stuff. And you just see him and he's very, very active and he's just oozing with confidence. And I just can't imagine Prince ever being this shy about his singing voice that he has to be coddled like this. But Chris Moon insists that the story is true, and you can hear the story for yourself on the Funkatopia page when I interviewed him in July of 2018. And the only part of that story, as far as the pillow and the blanket and all that stuff, that kind of lends some credence to the story is that Prince actually did use that recording technique with the blanket and the pillow when lying on the floor in the studio when he recorded the song Do Me Baby. He felt like that was going to be the best way to do the bedroom vibe. And so it was something that he learned from somewhere. And according to Chris, that's where it all started. The other thing too, just to kind of be clear, just for complete, I don't want to go down rabbit holes. I know some of you guys love it when I go down these rabbit holes on these album chats, but there are some other contributions that Chris claims and discusses in my interview with him, again, that you can hear on Funkatopia, about how Prince only wanted to perform as Mr. Nelson. He said, I'll never perform underneath Prince. I only want to perform as Mr. Nelson, but that Chris talked him into using Prince instead. And that he also claimed to influence Prince to use the color purple because Chris was taking some type of marketing training and that he happened to be doing at the time. He talked him into using the color. And again, I don't remember Prince using that color until we got to 1999. I just don't remember him actively using that color until then, until later on in his career. And he also said that Prince called him when Under the Cherry Moon came out and said that the movie was about him. Get it? Cherry Moon, C Moon. And Prince's character in the movie is named Christopher. This is a discussion that apparently him and Prince had on the phone. So here's the thing I can tell you about this. You start to hear some of these stories, especially posthumously, and sometimes they tend to get a little bit crazier and stories that never came out when he was with us. And now that he's gone, you start to hear some of these really wild, wild stories, and they become increasingly difficult to prove otherwise. But as we know, with Prince, anything is possible. But, the one thing I can tell you is that timelines are always important when you hear these stories. So that's the only thing I can tell you to keep in mind. But again, Chris pretty much was responsible for kind of building him up. And that, to his credit, is, some of the intricacies I don't know. But I can tell you that Owen has a lot of faith. Owen Husney, we'll talk about here in a second, had a lot of faith in everything that Chris Moon did to kind of help get Prince to that point where he's comfortable doing the singing and he's doing good production work and all that stuff. So all that being said, one thing is irrefutable, and is that once he got Prince comfortable with his singing voice, one of the songs that Chris Moon and Prince worked on together was actually Prince's very first hit, Soft and Wet. And we'll talk more about that song specifically when we get to that track in the album chat. But I first wanted to establish the importance of Chris Moon in this process of discovering Prince. Chris and Prince put a demo together of a few songs, and Prince asked Chris to be his manager. Prince said, I really would like for you to manage me. I really want you to, kind of help me out. And basically, Chris was like, I just don't want to be a manager. I just want to write music. I just want to kind of do production. I just don't want to do any of that stuff. So as fate would have it, there's a guy who happens to be at Moon Studio who is managing another band that's happened to recording there, maybe free. Maybe free. I don't know. But all that being said, Chris goes out of his way to land a meeting with this guy, and the guy's name is Owen Husney. This is a man who has worked and spent time with Jimi Hendrix, Al Jarreau, Sly Stone, and some others. So, Owen Husney is no joke. So Chris takes the demo that him and Prince have created, takes it to Owen, and basically goes to Owen and markets Prince as the next Stevie Wonder, except he's not blind. Yep, that was his pitch. And even he admits that, his marketing for Prince wasn't perfected yet, but he knew he had something. So Owen Husney is listening to this demo, and along comes song number 2 that we just talked about, Soft and Wet. And it was unlike anything that he had ever heard before. And so he asked Chris Moon, he says, who is all in this band? Is this, studio musicians, who is all in here? And he's shocked to learn that it's all one single guy named Prince Rogers Nelson, who at the time of the demo was just 17 years old. Long story short, well, actually, long story longer, Owen Husney told Funkatopia in our interview with him that he knew that he had to act quickly. Labels were going to be cutthroat about this. They knew that whenever they had, one of these types of deals where you find somebody who only comes along once every 50 years or so, you got to act, and you got to act quickly. So he agrees to manage Prince, but he has to redo the demo better than what was done. I mean, obviously, again, Chris Moon is still starting out, still working on his production chops. He's probably fantastic by now. But this time he uses a gentleman by the name of David Rivkin, who many of you know as Bobby Z's brother. Actually, technically, in all defense, David has worked with a lot of folks. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But David Rivkin and Prince work on a new 3-song demo that had Just As Long As We're Together, My Love Is Forever, and Jelly Jam on it. So meanwhile, in his pocket, though, along with those 3 songs, Prince also had in his pocket Baby, Soft and Wet, and Make It Through the Storm, which were the ones that Chris Moon and him had done, because he just needed backups just in case they wanted to hear more. And then they also had to put together some press kits and then market him to some labels via some connections that Owen just happens to have. Owen said that they spent $1,500 to create 15 press kits. And for you math junkies, that's like $100, not like, it is $100 per press kit, which seems very high in 1976. I mean, it seems high now. If I had to do a press kit for my band, I don't know that $100, it's just $100 just seems really steep. Anyway, he also knew that the press kits had to be different. He needed to break through the monotony, because Owen said, the usual press kits have clippings and stories about your mom and all the other bands that you played in, some of your past and some of your history and whatnot. And Owen said, all I did was I had a picture of Prince on the cover, and it said composition, voice, and instrumentation, ... rarely in a single musician, American artist presents Prince. And inside of that press kit were just 5 sheets. And on those sheets, there was just one picture and then a quote from Prince above each one. So there was 5 pictures of Prince in it and then a quote above it. That's all that was in that press kit, which was groundbreaking. Nobody did press kits like that. I mean, just kind of created all kinds of, curiosity, which is great. Was also good about it is that Prince was already so quiet. He was shy. He didn't talk much. So these press kits really kind of helped to solidify the whole process of creating Prince as enigmatic, a practice that he would, we all know that he would maintain for his entire career. And I'm going to stop one more time here, just to be clear. We are going to be playing the songs from this album for you, just so we're clear. I know you're like, yeah, bless America. This guy is talking like a whole bunch. I wanted to hear some music. You are going to hear some music, but you're going to hear all the songs track by track. Every single one. And I'm going to give you the history of each one of these tracks. But I just kind of wanted to let you know, you need to appreciate this journey. This is what these album chats are. There are tons of fans that we have of album chats that I've done all of Prince's albums. I've done album chats for all of his albums. And this is kind of a little bit of an addictive thing. If you're a Prince junkie, you want to hear all this background information and some of these things and stories that you just never heard before. So for those not acclimated to my album chats, this is what we do. I'm a storyteller, and it's all factual. It's all stuff that I've even gotten from interviews from people who were directly there, or sources like Prince Vault, or sources like all the massive books that you probably see behind me if you're watching the video, Per Nielsen, Dwayne Tudall, all those types of people that are dealing with factual information. So everything that you're hearing here is not hearsay. It's all, it is what it is. So enjoy the ride. We're going to have a lot of fun. So let's get back to the story. So the press kits go out and they entertained some labels with those minimalist press kits, but no one was biting. ABC and Robert Stigwood's RSO Records just said, no, we're not interested. I mean, hindsight is 2020, right? I would imagine that if Prince had signed with ABC or RSO, that it probably would have changed the whole trajectory of that label. I can't imagine it wouldn't have. But outside of those people who said no, they did have some bites from A&M, and A&M offered Prince a 2-album commitment. Now, CBS was interested, but they required Prince to perform in the studio so they could see him do his thing right before their own eyes. And they liked what they heard. And they offered him a 3-album contract. I want to add that too, but only if Verdine White from Earth, Wind and Fire produced the record. And Prince refused. He said, no one should produce a record of mine. I should do it. End of story. So there's that. In the end, as you already know, sorry, I had to get a drink of water, a lot of talking. They landed at Warner Brothers. And Owen Husney pulled a lot of strings at Warner Brothers to get them to let him even get in the door to audition. Even Prince had acknowledged Owen Husney's contribution. In 1981, Prince was quoted as saying, "Owen believed in me. He really did." He said, first of all, nobody believed I could play all the instruments. So right out of the gate, he went out of his way to acknowledge that Owen Husney, believed in him and really had his back. But their biggest ace up the sleeve, as far as Warner Brothers was concerned, was that Owen Husney knew a gentleman by the name of Russ Thyret. I assume that's how you pronounce his name, is Thyret. Thrit. He was the vice president at Warner Brothers, and Owen had worked with him as a concert promoter. So that kind of gave him a little bit of an opportunity to, possibly get in his ear a little bit easier than he was with the other labels. So he kind of was able to get a little bit more pull there. But on the same note, Prince also had to sell himself as well. So the reality was that Prince was simply not comfortable speaking in business situations, because you have to remember at this point now, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, he's 18 at this point. So he's still young. Think about when you were 18. He's still young. He's still shy. He's dreadfully nervous. This is just not something that he just wants to do. He just doesn't think that he can carry on a conversation with, all these execs. So David Rifkin, again, Bobby Z's brother, suggested to him, hey, you communicate through your music. So just write a song for them to celebrate the occasion. Prince was like, that's a good idea. He agreed. And the result was an unreleased song called We Can Work It Out, which contained the lyrics, "Making music naturally, me and WB." You may have heard it on Funked Up. We play it occasionally on that. or you may have heard it online. But the song is called "We Can Work It Out," and that was a song that he wrote to kind of serve as this gateway between him and the execs, because he couldn't get into the conversation with them. But on the same note, Warner Brothers also wants to see him in action in the studio to see where their money is going. And the WB execs included Lenny Waronker, Mo Austin, who just passed away recently, I guess like about a week ago, rest in peace. So they all come to see him, and they're watching Prince record an entire song on the spot without assistance or click tracks. It's crazily, in hindsight, we did find out through Owen Husney that also present in that studio watching Prince that day record this song on the spot was producer Gary Katz from Steely Dan, Ted Templeman from the Doobie Brothers, and reportedly, if I remember this correctly from Owen Husney's conversation, Van Morrison. So all these people are in the studio watching Prince create this song on the fly by himself. This 18-year-old kid just going through and recording the drums. And then he would just come out and mix, then go back out, play another instrument, come in and mix, and then repeat until they had a finished product, all right there in front of them. And funny enough, Prince had no idea who any of them were. Owen Husney said he probably thought they were all janitors. After witnessing everything, Warner Brothers went all out to sign him in a big way. Owen said, while everybody was wining and dining, Russ Thyrick took us back to his house, sat on the floor, and talked music with us. And in the end, as we know, Warner Brothers offered Prince a 3-album deal to the tune of about $180,000, which was unheard of in those days for a new unestablished act. I mean, in today's dollars, that's probably about $650,000, $700,000, somewhere around there, which is really not a lot when you're producing an album. But for somebody that nobody's heard of, it's really unreal. Unfortunately, Prince, now remember, they gave him $180,000 to record 3 albums. So that's about $60,000 an album that he's got to work with. Unfortunately, Prince blew through $170,000 of it in just on the first album. And he knew he was in trouble. Prince said, "I was a physical wreck when I finished the record. I didn't really feel like recording for 80% of the record, but I did anyway, because by the time I got to 100,000, it was like, you're going to have to do something great. So by that time, I didn't want to make any mistakes." But unfortunately, you're talking about Prince, the second album, and then Dirty Mind, which he's going to have to record at that point in time with about $10,000. As far as I know, I don't really know what the full details are, but I think that Warner Brothers reached back into their pocket and gave them a little bit more money to kind of get things done. Strangely enough, like CBS, Warner Brothers wanted another member of Earth, Wind & Fire to produce the album, lead singer Maurice White. But Maurice simply just didn't have time to do it. But it doesn't matter because, again, Prince refused. Prince told Right On Magazine in 1979, "I thought I knew my material better than any other producer, and it seemed like I was best suited for the job." So he was sticking to his guns. He's going to do his own thing. It doesn't matter what's going on. He's going to do his own thing. So another thing he insisted with Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers had, this is the 70s. We're about to go into the 80s here. So there's some racial tension going on. There's just a lot of things musically that if an artist comes out, they kind of get, put here. If a black artist comes out, they're going to put him here. If a white pop artist from England comes out, they're going to put him here. If they just have certain places that they like to put into certain categories. And Prince insisted, even when he was putting this band together, which we all know, but in this particular case, right out of the gate, before he even had to put a band together, he got in front of them and said, "I don't want to be R&B. I don't want to be soul. I don't want to be funk. Don't put me on the Chitlin circuit. Don't market me as a black artist. I just make good music. That's the end of it. That's all there is to it. I don't want anyone to have any preconceived notions about who I am or what I'm going to sound like." Now, Warner Brothers kind of relented and kind of let him do his thing. But on the same note, they kind of kept pushing and said, you really need somebody to kind of sit over you and kind of watch what you're doing. And So Prince and Owen were kind of a little bit concerned that maybe the deal might fall through if they didn't concede. So they reluctantly agreed to allow a gentleman by the name of Tommy Vicari to produce the album. Now, this is a guy who has already done work with Gino Vanelli, Billy Preston, and Santana. So he had already worked with tons of people, and that's a short list. He's got a very, very long list. Tommy Vicari is very, very talented producer. And ultimately, Prince made Tommy Vicari's life a living hell. Prince even said about Tommy Vicari, he said, the relationship between me and their executive producer they assigned with me was horrifying. He really was just an engineer, and he was well-versed in shortcuts, but I didn't want to take any. That was why it took 5 months to make. Ultimately, he made Tommy's life very, very difficult, pushing against him and just upsetting things in a variety of different ways. And he ended up recording and producing the entire For You album by himself, all instruments, all vocals, even though Tommy Vicari's name is on the album as a producer. He really didn't have a whole bunch of say-so when it came to the final layout. So the creation of For You had finally begun. And at this point, David Rivkin, I keep saying Bobby Z's brother, that's who it is, was at the helm as an engineer, and also there for moral support. They flew in his childhood friend, Andre Anderson, aka Andre Simone. The album For You, we're getting close here, folks. The album For You features 9 songs, but even for this first album, that was a good bit of tunes. It's a new artist. Nobody's ever heard him before. So there were some songs that did not make it onto the album, like Make It Through the Storm. We're going to talk about that in a second, because that was another song that was co-written by Chris Moon along with Soft and Wet. So it's just weirdness. We'll talk about that. And there was another song called I Like What You're Doing. And that was a song that he wrote for Owen Husney when they got into an argument about the fact that, Owen was telling Prince, your songs need to be 3 minutes or less. He said, the demos that you guys created at Moon Studios, they're just mostly just rambling 10-minute songs. And that was something that he did not want to hear. That ticked Prince off. So Prince stormed off and wrote the song, I Like What You're Doing. And he put it on a cassette and he laid it on Owen Husney's doorstep. So in the morning, Owen Husney goes out to get the newspaper, and there's a cassette on his porch. And on the cassette are the words F you written on it. And he spelled out the F. And on that cassette was the song, I Like What You're Doing. But what's interesting is that out of that anger that happened in that day, by the way, which was in 1977, he not only recorded that song, which was at the Loring Park rehearsal room in Minneapolis, but he also wrote that really awesome song. And I hope you guys have heard this song. It's still an unreleased track, but it's pretty readily accessible. You can go on YouTube and find it. But it's a song by Prince called Neurotic Lover's Bedroom, which is fan-friggin-tastic. It's one of my all-time favorite Prince songs, and it's an unreleased track, which is very, very, there's so many great songs that are unreleased, like Red Scarlet and things like that. They're just masterpiece songs, and I wish they would finally see the light of day. Neurotic Lover's Bedroom is one of them. That would have been a fantastic addition to For You, by the way. But ultimately it didn't happen. And there was also a song called Hello, My Love. And that was a song that Prince wrote for Owen Husney's secretary. Prince had a crush on Owen's secretary. And so Prince wrote the song for her called Hello, My Love. And I guess he just liked to deliver these things via cassette. And he put it on cassette and he put it on her desk. And she wasn't impressed. Again, hindsight sucks. It is what it is. So then there's also another unreleased track called Wouldn't You Love to Love Me? And that was inspired by Owen Husney when Owen purchased a drum machine. It was a Korg Mini Pops SR120. And that was most likely the very, very first song that Prince ever wrote on a drum machine. All of those songs to this day still remain unreleased. And they were all things that were considered to possibly be on For You. So while all those songs that I just mentioned were all assumed to have been considered, they're technically, in writing, on paper, have only been 3 known configurations of this album For You. One of them was in Prince's own handwriting in the book that was released posthumously, that he was supposed to write the whole entire thing, called The Beautiful Ones. That was the book deal that he got, that he was supposed to write the whole entire thing. He was supposed to tell his life story. And in that book, there is an entire song list of a configuration of the album that he had for the album For You. And the way that For You is supposed to be laid out, this first configuration was, it's supposed to open up with the song For You. That stayed, that isn't changed. However, after For You, there were 4 songs that are still unreleased to this day, none that I just mentioned. A song called Body Freeze, a song called Never Really Fell Out of Love with You, a song called You Are Everything to Me, and a song called I Spend My Time Loving You. Again, those 4 are all still unreleased. That last one was written around the same time that some of you hardcore Prince fans may recall, that if you happen to find some of these things online and in various sources and bootleggers and whatever else, there's songs like Nightingale, Rock Me Lover, Leaving for New York. All of them are horrible recordings. I don't think I've ever heard a decent recording of any of these tracks, but they're painful to listen to. But I Spend My Time Loving You was among the mix of those same songs. They're just barely listenable copies. So that was side 1 of For You. Remember, we're talking about the vinyl days here. They had cassettes, but we're talking about vinyl here. And on side 2 was going to open up with Soft and Wet. That's still on the album. Then the next song was going to be Baby. That's still on the album. And then a few more still unreleased tracks. Let Me Touch You, Love in the Morning, and get this, the last song that was supposed to be on For You was Send in the Clowns. Yes, that Send in the Clowns, the Stephen Sondheim classic song, Send in the Clowns. Prince was actually going to do a rendition of that Stephen Sondheim song. But what's interesting is, in his handwritten notes, he wrote Send in the Clowns, and he said, by Judy Collins. Now, while Judy Collins did perform that song, it's not Judy Collins' song. He may have thought it was her. It's not. It's Stephen Sondheim, but it doesn't matter. He was actually going to be doing a Stephen Sondheim piece, Send in the Clowns. Send in the Clowns. I can't even imagine what that would have been with I can't even process it. It's funny. Anyways, then lastly, there's one last configuration before we talk about the actual album here. And it features all the songs that are on the album right now as we know it, and some slight variations. But it also includes 2 unreleased songs as part of the mix. One was Make It Through the Storm, and then the album was going to close with another song called Amber Eyes. So that's that. So now let's talk about the album itself as it is right now. Yes, we're getting close here. We're getting close here, folks. The album drops. For You is finally released. How did it do? Not great. Let's just leave it there. Not great. The album reached number 163 on US Billboard Top LPs and Tapes chart. It did do better on the Billboard Soul LPs chart, where it reached position 21. The album is reported to have sold 150,000 to 200,000 copies in Trax magazine in December of 1979. Ultimately, the shortfall of this album was that it was dropped in the middle of Music Madness. And when I say Music Madness, as far as the soul charts were concerned, For You was dropped at the same time that Brothers Johnson's album Blam dropped, that Ashford and Simpson dropped their Is It Still Good For You? Barry White dropped his album The Man. Chic dropped their album Say Chic. And then to make matters worse, Funkadelic dropped One Nation Under a Groove. These were all albums that came out at the same time as Prince's For You. So ultimately, there was a bunch of other ones in that mix too. Donna Summer had an album out called Live and More. Rick James had Come Get It. Rose Royce had Strikes Again. I mean, all these things that had happened at the same time as For You, that happened between August and December of 1978, it just made it impossible for Prince to even reach the top 10. It's just not possible. So, excuse me. Prince took that lack of success out of the gate personally. As you probably would. I mean, if you put that much work into that, if you put that much work into the whole process, you probably would be annoyed as well. I can imagine that it's, you're going to be disappointed. And Owen Husney said, Prince had been told that he was so fantastic, so much that he believed that he was going to be really successful right out of the gate. And so he started to blame Warner Brothers, and then he started to blame me. And that's reasonable. You can probably expect it. Of note, there is a detailed listing of all the instruments played on the album by Prince, and it totaled 27 different instruments, and one of which was the synthesizers that he was assisted in programming by the one and only Patrice Rushen. But he very much was attracted to the synth instead of horns. So keeping in mind that synthesizers had seen their dominance in the 80s yet. We're not into the 80s at this point. So he was very much ahead of the curve in utilizing them this way. I mean, obviously Funkadelic is using, you've got Bernie Worrell that's doing his thing. So keyboards are still being used in a funky type of synth way, but Prince is using them for horn patterns and just doing things that just aren't normal. And he was focused on that. Prince said, I wanted to make a different sounding record. We originally planned to use horns, but it's really hard to sound different if you use the same instruments as everybody else. By not using horns on the record, I made an album that would sound different right away. So I created a different kind of horn section by multi-tracking a synthesizer and some guitar lines. He said, I got hip to Polymoogs when I was working at Studio 80. I liked them a lot then, and I was trying to get away from using the conventional sound of pianos and clavinets as the main keyboards. Now, as for the falsetto approach that he took on the album, writers of various magazines that did reviews they compared him to Smokey Robinson and the Bee Gees to describe his voice. Needless to say, he wasn't a fan of those comparisons because, again, he ultimately was just trying to do his own thing, and he wanted to be recognized for doing his own thing. So he felt like he just really needed to justify it. Prince said, with the higher voice, it was easier to hit the higher notes, and it also hurts to sing in my lower voice when I sing too hard. I couldn't get any life, so to speak. And so the energy, I just can't get from that lower voice. So that was his reasoning for going falsetto this whole entire album. So, okay. Are you ready for some actual music now? Are you finally ready for some I know I'm ready for some actual music now because I need to take a drink. Let's talk about the songs that did make it on this album. We're going to talk about these songs one by one, and then we're going to play each one of them. So we're finally here. We've gone through all the preliminary information about the album, how he got to where he was, all the background story, and I hope you guys ultimately appreciated everything that we just did because it's a lot. So we're here. You made it. These are going to be the actual songs. You have arrived. All right. So let's talk about song number 1. It's the shortest song on the album, the title track. Super short song. It's just over 1 minute. It's the first track on the album, the title track, For You. Owen Husney calls this song impeccable. And he happened to note that there are lots of vocalists who layer their vocals in falsetto, but most of the time you can tell it's the same person. He said, on this track, however, it's impossible to imagine that all of the vocal tracks that you're hearing are all Prince. Each track has a different personality, and some sound like him, and others, they simply just don't. The first and last time that this song was played was at the Capri Theater on January 5th, 1979. However, there is a shortened clip version of this song that is used much later in his career with a song that he did with Judith Hill called $1 Million Show. Matter of fact, every single time that I hear $1 Million Show, when I hear it, I'm like, oh, is this For You or is this $1 Million Show? I'm like, is this going to end right here or is it going to play the whole thing I really want to hear all of For You, but it's going to be $1 Million Show when they're going to break it to something else. I think it mixes with that intro with 1999. Don't worry, whatever. But anyways, Prince wanted to make sure that the very first song that people would ever hear from him would be a notable first introduction to the world. And to be clear, just so you can wrap your heads around this, there are 40 layers of vocals here. 40. 40. Now, he obviously loved the whole process of doing the a cappella track. That's kind of evidenced by the follow-up a cappella track that he did of that song called The Second Coming that ended up opening his earlier concerts. But it's 40 layered tracks of vocals with one short verse. And the song says, all of this and more is for you. With love, sincerity, and deepest care, my life with you I share. That's all the song says. He recorded the song on a cassette recorder at his home in 1976. Again, it was a very productive period that also produced some classic unreleased tracks that some Prince fanatics like myself may recognize, including Wouldn't You Love to Love Me, Nightingale, I Spend My Time Loving You, Rock Me, Lover, and Don't You Want to Ride, some of the ones I've already mentioned previously. He re-recorded the version that you were about to hear here in Sausalito, California at the record plant. I think it was like late 70s that he did that. And he also did in the early 78, I want to say it was, he did some mixing and overdubs at Sound Labs in Los Angeles. So it's Prince on all vocals and not just vocals, but wind chimes. I think that counts as an instrument. I think it does. It's wind chimes. It's a chime. I guess wind chimes is an instrument. I don't know. So let's do this, shall we? Let's take a listen to a song that is only, oh my gosh, that is only 1 minute and 6 seconds long. And keep in mind that it is well understood that this was Prince's clear and decisive plan for you to hear this song as the first one that you would ever hear him sing. He knew that this would be the first impression that you would have of him. And this, he's fully aware that this is it. So, all that being said, you're listening to the expanded album chat of Prince's For You album right here on Funkatopia and the Funked Up app. And here it is, the very first and very short track, finally, For You, the title track to Prince's album. Enjoy. So there it was. Sorry, I've got to get used to switching everything around, switching all the audio. 40 tracks of vocals. I still can't process this whole thing. 40 tracks of vocals that are all happening. And wow, just friggin' wow. That's the first song that he wanted you to hear. Now, keep in mind, we just got done playing it. This is where all you Facebook listeners and all of you YouTube listeners are going to get kicked off, because Facebook is going to recognize that these are songs and they're going to kick you off. YouTube is going to eventually do it as well. Head to mixcloud.com/Funkatopia, mixcloud.com/Funkatopia, or listen on the Funked Up app, and you'll be able to listen unfettered. And we're going to go through the rest of these songs as well. But man, yeah, it's coming. You guys are going to get kicked off. You may be able to just watch the video on Facebook, and then everything else is going to go haywire at that point, I would assume. I'm trying to make notations about times when I need to go in and edit this video and take out some of this rigmarole and chatter. All right, so that was For You, the title track, and the incredible title track with 40 layers of vocals and wind chimes. So now that brings us to the first song that will feature Prince on not just vocals, but also showcase his prowess on instruments. So once again, he has to show you what he's got. And I can tell you as a performer back in my day that this is important. This is very, very important right here. When you're standing in front of an audience that has never heard you before, and you have seconds to prove yourself and get them invested. You have to prove that you can play, you can prove that you can sing, you can prove that you can do everything that you need to do. So with the opening track for you, he has shown you that he's got vocal chops, and now he's going to layer his instrumental skills over the top. And he's playing drums, he's using layered synthesizers, guitar, and bass. The sound that was established for this album hadn't really been done before. Nobody's ever done anything like this album before. But as soon as the song starts, right out of the gate, besides that little short verse that we heard in For You, he goes right into the sexual overtones right out of the gate. The lyrics are, ever since I met, I'm not going to do all the lyrics, but here's a piece of it. Ever since I met you, baby, I've been wanting to lay you down. But it's so hard to get you, baby, when you never come around. Every day that you keep it away, it only makes me want it more. Oh, baby, just say the word and I'll be at your door. What more do I have to say? I really want to play in your river. Now, by the time the song gets way to the midway point, with the exception of the play in your river line, it then becomes a little bit more about love and less about lust. Some of the lyrics are falling, falling, falling in love. I'm falling, baby, deeper every day. You're breaking my heart and taking me away. I'm falling, baby girl. What can I do? I just can't be without you. So starts out kind of lustful, then kind of goes to a little bit different of a place. So there you have it. The song was recorded in the last part of 1977, but again, mixed and overdubbed in January of 1978 at Sound Labs in Los Angeles. The song has never been played live by Prince, the song that we're about to play. And of course, all the vocals and music are Prince and Prince alone. So let's do it. Let's kind of get back into the mode here. Let's go into song number 2 to show you what he can do on instruments. Remember, this is his process. You're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's album For You on Funkatopia. And here is your next track, track number 2, the song In Love. Enjoy.
But it's so hard to get you, baby, when you never come around. Every day that you keep it away, it only makes me want it more. Oh, baby, just say the word, and I'll be at your door. What more do I have to say? I really want to play in your love. Falling, falling, falling in love. I'm falling, baby, deeper every day. I'm falling, baby, girl, what can I do? I just can't be without you. Ever since I met you, baby, there's been something inside of me that keeps me wanting you, baby, won't you set me free? Take off these chains, girl, and I think I'm yours. There's no one in the world, baby, that I wanna love more. What else do I have to say? I really want to play in your river. Falling, falling, falling in love. I'm falling, baby, deeper every day. Yeah. You're taking my heart, taking me away. Yeah. I'm falling, baby, girl, what can I do? I just can't be without you.
Yeah, man. That was In Love, the next track on this amazing album. I got to make sure that I kind of like pause all this stuff and like stop it and make sure that everything works that it's supposed to be working the way that it's a lot of buttons. It's just a lot of buttons. I was going to be doing some actual talking and actual chat, but what's ending up happening is that there's this I'm just doing it via chat. This just makes it so much easier on my life. So we'll just do it that way. I guess it's another one of those times I got to write down. So anyways, got to take that out of the edit. All right, so let's go to the next song, shall we? Song number 3. That song was In Love, song number 2 on Prince's debut album, For You. And now we're actually at the first actual single. That was redundant. The actual single off of the album. Now, many folks name this as their absolute positive favorite song, Soft and Wet. It dropped 2 months after For You was released, which happened to be on June 7th, 1978, to celebrate Prince's 20th birthday. The B-side to the single was the song So Blue, and it sold 350,000 copies in the U.S., climbing to number 12 on the Black chart and number 92 on the pop chart. That's not really too fantastic, but it's it is what it is. It's the second song on that original demo that Chris Moon and Prince had put together when they were shopping for management. And this is also the only song on the album that is credited to someone other than Prince, and it gives Chris Moon the co-writing credit. Now, the song is the epitome of double entendres. Okay, even though I say that, no one is thinking about anything else other than the woman being soft and wet. No one is thinking about an alternative meaning, like at all. It's just I don't even know what you would be thinking if you thought something else. I don't understand. Somehow Chris Moon and Prince felt like this was enough of a double entendre that it would pass the top 40 smell test of Casey Kasem. And somehow it did for a little while anyways. But that wasn't before they had to make some edits that made it a little less obvious. To kind of give you an idea, the song used to be a lot more obvious. There was a lyric in the song Soft and Wet that went, Angora fur, the agency, it's a soft, wet love that you have for me. Angora fur? Really? I don't, it's just, even the final result after they made these edits are ridiculous. I mean, have you even read these lyrics? The first line of the song in the final edit, the first line of the song is, hey lover, I got a sugar cane that I want to lose in you. Baby, can you stand the pain? What could possibly be the alternate meaning there? John Bream, who him and Prince actually had quite the interviewee relationship over many, many years. At the time he was working for the Minneapolis Star, and he said, they asked me about it on the radio, and I told him it was about deodorant. I don't think they believed me. I'm sure they didn't. Again, Chris Moon wrote this song with Prince, and he says that he's been collecting royalties on the song pretty much since he wrote it. But for some reason, in 2018, and I wish that I had this up online, you can probably find it, Chris Moon attempted to sell his royalty rights to this song, Soft and Wet, for $490,000. To make matters worse, he did it on eBay, which is even more ridiculous. So if he had found a buyer, whoever had made that purchase, it would have been more of it would have been an ego play more than anything else. That's ultimately what it would have been. That's what it would have been. Just because you wouldn't have made your money back. You just wouldn't. you wouldn't have profited from the song for many, many, many years. Now, he admittedly said that the most money, and he never even divulged what that amount was, that the most money that he ever made off of Soft and Wet was when MC Hammer used the song clip on his album Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him, which was obviously, had his biggest hit ever, which was Don't Touch This, or Can't Touch This, sorry, Don't Touch This, Can't Touch This. So the buyer of this song, if there had been a buyer, would have had bragging rights and not much financial gain from it. There wouldn't have been any return on investment that would equate to a profit anyways. And I know that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, that like, how's a song as big as Soft and Wet not even make $500,000 in royalties over a long period of time? I mean, how small are the royalties that you can't even make $500,000 over a reasonable period of time for a song like Soft and Wet? Either way, it doesn't matter. Chris Moon still owns it. The auction did not sell, even though the listing sat on eBay for an entire month and was covered by Rolling Stone magazine. Even with all that publicity and everybody out there pushing it, nobody did it. Yes, nobody did it. The single, Soft and Wet, we're still talking about this, also saw another life, not just on a greatest hits collection. Again, please, no more greatest hits collection. I'm begging the estate and family, no more, please. But also as a single in 1988 on this thing that they did called back-to-back hits, where they took two of his big hits and they put them on a 45. Soft and Wet was on one side and Kiss was on the other. Again, it was all Prince on vocals and instruments on both those songs. Well, Kiss, we can go down a whole rabbit hole with Brown Mark and Maserati and all that stuff, but whatever. Anyways, one of those instruments that was played on this song, Soft and Wet, was a keyboard. And it was a keyboard that he borrowed from Pierre Lewis of the Lewis Connection. Now, Prince had used it originally on a song called Got to Be Something Here. And then he broke out the keyboard again and used it on this song, Soft and Wet. But when Pierre went to go get it back, Pierre said, I loaned it to him and I had to finally go get it from him, and he wouldn't give it back. So Prince took this keyboard from him and just didn't give it back. We just wouldn't give it back. You should have known better. Lesson learned. But another interesting note is that on the handwritten lyrics for this song, Soft and Wet, for the 1976-77 version of this song, it's not credited to Prince or Chris Moon. It says it's credited to someone named Percy Begonia, Begonia. Obviously, this is another one of Prince's pseudonyms, like Jamie Starr or whatever else. But it's that name was also written as credited on the lyric sheets for a song called Go, and also a very popular song called I Feel For You. So these lyrics were written out, and it was credited to Percy Begonia. Now, he's never used that pseudonym publicly before, but again, if you see those, you can find the images for those handwritten lyrics for those songs, you're going to see that it says Percy Begonia on there. Anyway, the first time that this song, Soft and Wet, was played was January 5th, 1979 at the Capri Theater, which is a really big historic show. It was one of his first shows. And the last time that Soft and Wet was played was in November 7th of 2010. And it happened to be in Belgium, but he wasn't on stage when it played. I don't know if it was instrumental. I don't know what it was, but apparently it was playing over the PA, or not. Somebody was playing it, but he wasn't on stage. The song was actively played during the Prince tour. It was also played during the Rick James 80 tour, and also during the Love Sexy tour. So you got to hear that song quite a bit if you saw any of those tours. The only tour that I saw in that mix was the Love Sexy tour. I hadn't been on board yet. So anyways, all that being said, here it is, his first single and his first hit off of this debut album for you, Soft and Wet. You're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's For You right here on Funkatopia. Here you go, Soft and Wet. And there it was, Soft and Wet. Man, that was his first big hit, and it's it's one of the best. I love the fact that I can actually do these album chats, and I've kind of figured out how to kind of manage this stuff. The only thing that could possibly go wrong is that I'm doing the music from my phone, which could potentially get a phone call. So if anybody has my number, I will kill you if you call me right now. I will block you, and you will forever die and rot in a deep, dark place that is filled with evil spirits and Bill Cosby. That's just what's going to happen here. Jeff Page, do not freaking call me. I'm going to have to kill you. All right. So that was a classic hit and his first hit, as I mentioned, Soft and Wet. And that brings us to track number 4, which is the second short. Man, it's cool when these songs are a little bit longer, but yeah, it's okay. This is the second shortest song on the album, clocking in at only 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Not many lyrics to this song either, kind of like For You, which was very, very short. This is not much longer than that. The lyrics are, "You have got a strange way about you, kind of crazy, but I love you just the same, because you, oh, you make me want to do, oh, everything. I'm just a crazy fool, lost in the world of love. I get from crazy you. Oh, I'm so strung out, thinking about the crazy things you do, crazy you." I know that's not the pattern. I want to read it like it is. It's just, it's more humorous to me. And it's, like the next song on this album, and just so we're clear, the next song is Just As Long As We're Together, but we're talking about Crazy You right now. But like Just As Long As We're Together, if Prince felt some kind of way about a track, he would try to figure out a way to try to get the most mileage out of it. Now, this track was repurposed as a B-side to the song Uptown, which was the single from his Dirty Mind album. So we are like 2 albums away from this one, and he still manages to take this song because he really, really likes it and stick it as a B-side to this single, which is pretty kind of cool. And this Uptown was a really, really big track for that album, for sure. Now, while most tracks on the album saw their first live performance at Prince's historic first concert at Capri Theater in 1979, this track did not get played at all then. Matter of fact, the first time that this song got played and debuted live was March 9th, 1981 at Sam's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the final time that it was played was April 15th, 2002 at Sanger Theater in New Orleans, Louisiana. But that was only part of the NPG Music Club soundcheck, so only a very limited amount of people actually even got to hear it. Like pretty much all of the tracks on this album, obviously, it was originally recorded in late 1977 and then overdubbed and mixed at Sound Labs in LA in January of 1978. And also, like all of the tracks, it's Prince on all vocals and instruments. And here it is. The song is Crazy You. And, I'm sure that you are I'm sure you're familiar with the song. You've got to be familiar with the song, but it's a short one. So even if you're not, you only have to listen for 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Here it is, Crazy You, right here on the Funkatopia radio show. And you're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's For You right here on Funkatopia and the Funked Up app. Enjoy.
You got a strange way about you, kinda crazy, but I love you just the same, 'cause you make me wanna do everything. I'm just a crazy fool, lost in the world of love I get from crazy you. Oh, I'm so strung out, thinking about the crazy things you do. Crazy you.
Gotta love that super slow fade. Jeff Page in the chat room saying this is the first song that he learned how to play off this album. Super slow fade. Still going. Pretty impressive. So there you go. That was the song Crazy You, which was the next song that we happened to discuss about this album, the debut album from Prince, For You. For those of you guys just tuning in, wow, you've missed a whole bunch. You've missed about an hour and 15 minutes worth of chatter and preliminary information, but you're going to be able to make it up. You'll be able to listen to this replay, and it'll be a fantastic thing. I promise you it'll be worth your while to go back if you missed any of this, because there's some really, really cool stuff that you probably did not know. If there's anybody out there who did not learn anything so far, like if I said something that you did not previously know, that's what was intended. but I cannot believe for a minute that there's somebody out there who knew everything that I just said in the past hour and 15 minutes. It's just not possible. All right, so that was Crazy You, which brings us to the second single off of the album. The first single was Soft and Wet, and the second single is this one, Just As Long As We're Together, which I love this friggin', and I love Soft and Wet too, but Just As Long As We're Together is amazing. No more singles were officially released from the album other than this one and Soft and Wet. Now this, even though it's a single, is the longest track on the entire album, which clocks in at 6 minutes and 24 seconds. Forgot to add the S on the end. There is another track that Prince really liked. This is another track that Prince really, really liked, and it captured the vibe that he originally wanted. And it's yet again, like I'd mentioned before, it's another song that he included as a B-side for a future album. That album was his second album, the self-titled Prince. Then the single that he put it on the back of was I Want to Be Your Lover. So I Want to Be Your Lover. And then the B-side was this song, Just As Long As We're Together. So I really like how, he moves forward, but then he's cross-promoting things in the past. This is very, very unlike Prince. Prince always liked to move forward. He just liked to move forward. And so it was very, very interesting to see him do this. I don't think he did this. I mean, obviously we're talking about greatest hits. I just don't remember him doing this type of thing. It's just weird. It's just a strange decision for Prince to be promoting a song from an old album instead of an alternate song from the same album. Now, he did that a few times for tracks off of this album. We've already mentioned one of them before the 80s. And then, Prince got into that mode where he was obsessed with creating this top shelf music, these top shelf songs for the B-sides, tracks that could easily stand on their own. They didn't have a home on any album, but songs like Erotic City and Hello and She's Always in My Hair. But this song, Just As Long As We're Together, had already been heard quite a bit previously. Remember, the story in the beginning of Prince, let me see if I can take you back for those who were tuned in earlier. Remember I told you that the story that Prince had been playing and producing music live in the studio in front of all those music executives. I mean, it was mind-boggling because he did it once for CBS in April of 1977, where he was recording the music and coming in and producing and then going back out and playing the next instrument back and forth. And he did it again for Warner Brothers, again, a few months later after he did it for CBS. Just so you know, to kind of add a little bit of more juice to that story, it was this song. This song is what he was recording in that process with CBS and Warner Brothers while they were watching him play it. Now, technically, it had been transformed from the instrumental called Jelly Jam. That was what was being compiled live in the studio for all to see. And the song was originally recorded in Moon Sound Studios in 1976, as I mentioned, as the instrumental called Jelly Jam. And then it eventually morphed into this song, Just As Long As We're Together, by late 1977. Now, overall, the track had a full disco sound, which was really big back in that particular time. But, there was even a disco remix made of this song, if I remember correctly. But lyrically, the song is basically about an open relationship of a couple who can essentially just go do whatever they want, even though they are technically together. And to kind of give you an idea, here's a sampling of some of those lyrics. It says, "You can live your own life and I'll live mine. I will never try to keep you down. And even if I only see you some of the time, I'm just happy when you come around. Just as long as we're together, everything's all right." So that's kind of the premise of it, was that it's a couple of people that are in a relationship. They don't want to lose each other, but on the same note, they don't want to be committed to each other. It's kind of how the lyrics read out. You can kind of translate them in a bunch of different ways, but that's essentially the iteration. The first time the song was played was in January of 1979, once again at the Capri Theater in Minneapolis, that first show, but it was regularly played on the Prince tour and also when he was on tour with Rick James in 1980. And it goes without saying, it's Prince on everything for vocals and instruments. And once again, you're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's For You album right here on Funkatopia. And here it is. the very, very next track on this album, Just As Long As We're Together. Here it is. Enjoy it.
Try to keep it down. Maybe if I only see you some other time, I'm just happy when you come around. Maybe if the sun don't shine, warm enough when you're in these arms of mine. Just as long as we're together, everything's alright. Everything's alright. Everything's alright. Everything's alright. Nothing that will break us apart. Girl, I got to always have you in my head. Got to always have you in my heart. Ooh, baby, your place so high. I'll get the music, baby, you bring the wine. Just as long as we're together. Oh, girl, ain't nothing better. Just as long as we're together, everything's alright. Everything's alright. Everything's alright.
I just can't even wrap my head around the fact that Prince actually recorded that song while a bunch of people were watching, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Because there's so many different changing pieces and moving parts in that. So it's crazy to me. That was just as long as we're together. You were warned. I told you that this would happen. Facebook has finally been rejected, has finally been kicked off. So please head to Mixcloud and mixcloud.com/Funkatopia, or you can listen on the Funked app, either one. Facebook, you guys have finally been jerked. I knew that was going to happen. I'm actually surprised that it lasted as long as it did, to be totally honest. The fact that we made it through more than half the album before it yanked you guys was pretty impressive, I got to say. All that being said, we will make sure that we post the edited version of this video. So if you missed any part of it whatsoever, you guys can view it on patreon.com/Funkatopia. That's patreon.com/Funkatopia. We'll also put it on a little bit of a private channel as well to kind of, make sure that we can keep the good times coming. Just as long as we're together. That's the name of that song. Originally Jelly Jam. Which brings us to the next song on the album, which is Baby. This is yet another track. Once again, we've already mentioned a few of them that he places on a B-side for a single from another album. And this time he places this song Baby on the flip side of the single Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad, again from his second album, Prince. So again, I can't wrap my head around why you wouldn't want to promote either. It seems like you have a bunch of alternate songs to pull from if you wanted to, but for whatever reason that Prince has going on in his head, he decides he wants to cross-reference his first album. Maybe he felt like, you know what, this album should have been bigger than it was. There's no reason why it shouldn't have been big. I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going to make sure that I make people go back to this album. And it's probably a pretty good idea because, okay, I'm just going to go ahead, and this is confession time for Mr. Christopher here. This is confession time. And the confession is that I really did not come on board with Prince until Dirty Mind. And even after I came on board with Dirty Mind, I was a funk guy. So, I had come from the school of Ohio Players and Earth, Wind and Fire. And while I like some of the jam sessions, some of the slow jams that, bands like Ohio Players would do, like Sweet Sticky Thing and stuff like that, I never really went back to Prince's first two albums at all until way, 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 way later, until like way beyond Purple Rain. I don't know what the reasoning for that was. I just didn't. I did go back when Chaka Khan's version of I Feel For You came out. I was like, oh, that's a cool song. Oh, Prince did that. When was this? So that's my confession. Now, I have rectified that horrendous error, but now I love both of these albums. They're friggin' fantastic, but we're talking about For You right now. Anyways, this song, Baby, was recorded in summer of 1976, and Prince was very much in a full-blown writing mode. And I mean, he was just trying to put together, like he has done. That's the reason why I had to do this friggin' vault over the years. But he was putting together a laundry list of songs that he would be able to choose from when he wanted to put together this debut album. Hence the whole scenario with the different configurations that had like full-blown different lists minus a few songs. So to kind of give you an idea of the time period or how much material he was writing, Baby was written in the same time period as, I'm going to go through some songs here. Some you may not know and some you don't know. I guarantee you don't know some of these songs, but they are songs that Prince wrote. Aces, Diamond Eyes, Don't Forget, Don't Hold Back, Fantasy, I'm Yours, we obviously know that one. Jelly Jam, we obviously know that one, which was later turned into Just As Long As We're Together. Leaving for New York, My Love Is Forever, Make It Through the Storm, Since We've Been Together, Surprise, and obviously Soft and Wet. Most of those remain unreleased. but if you try hard enough, you can probably find some of them on YouTube. In many cases, it's not hard at all to find some of this stuff, to be totally honest. The lyrics for this song, Baby, are about a couple dealing with an unplanned pregnancy. That's the long and short of it. It's sung by the male counterpart who is simply struggling with the fact that he barely makes enough money for the two of them. So he's not even exactly sure how he's going to be able to handle things with a baby in the mix. Now, Prince has publicly insisted that the song is nothing about him. It's not from any personal experience whatsoever, but that the song is actually inspired by some friends of his that were experiencing similar circumstances at the time that he wrote this song. The interesting thing that I find about this story that I really kind of found refreshing when I started to kind of dig a little bit more into this song is the way that the story in the lyrics plays out is that the options that they're considering about this child as a couple, as an unmarried couple, are all positive. Like the lyrics are, should we go on living together? That's option number one. Should we get married right away? Option number two. Whatever you decide, I'll still love you, baby, and we'll grow stronger every day. And ultimately, the song ends with a line that is, I would imagine, swoon worthy. It says, baby, baby, we're going to work it out. I hope our baby has eyes just like yours. Give me a break, dude. Are you serious right now? Anyways, there are multiple versions of this song recorded going back to 1976 at Moon Sound, one of which is from 1977, where Prince put together musicians from a Minneapolis radio station known as the WAYL Orchestra. And what they did is they came in and they layered real strings over this song. But Prince decided that I just don't like the way that this sounds. So he went back to using the synthesizer version of this song with the strings, the synthesizer strings. So even though the actual strings aren't there, when you listen to this song, you can absolutely 100% positively. Matter of fact, when I start this song, and you hear the synthesizer strings, you can absolutely hear what it would sound like in your head if there were actual strings there. I mean, you can absolutely hear what they sounded like. Here's a little known fact that it was a rumor that was disproven, and we're going to go ahead and get it figured out right now. Matter of fact, I think I saw a YouTube video on 5 facts that you did not know about for you, and 2 of them were wrong. So I want to make sure that we at least fix this one. A little known fact about the song is that performer Patrice Rushen came into the studio and actually helped him attain the sound that he was chasing with the synthesizers. Patrice came in and she put together the orchestral arrangements for this song and wrote them down for him. But contrary to rumors, and this is according to an interview that she did, I want to say 2009, I think. I can't remember the exact year. She did not play on this track. I keep hearing this rumor that Patrice Rushen played on this track, and she said, I did not play on this track. She said, I put together the orchestral arrangements. I wrote them down for him, but that was it. And even with that, though, the song still shows that Prince is the only one responsible for the vocals, the writing, and the instruments. He's the only one. Maybe Patrice should send him some forget-me-nots to help him to remember. We also know, obviously, that this won't be the last time that someone contributes to one of his songs and is either not acknowledged or just kind of written off as a hired hand. I think, members of the Revolution experienced that quite a bit, where they were an active part of the band, an active part of the project, an active part of writing a lot of the music and a lot of the songs, especially when it came to Sign of the Times. Wendy and Lisa can tell you gazillion stories about everything that they did in order to help put some of those songs together for that album. But they ultimately did not get any credit. They weren't even listed in the credits at all. and they were an integral part of that album. And they were just kind of written off as like a hired hand, which, all that being said, interestingly enough, this song that we're about to play here, Baby, was never performed live, except for one time on his final Prince Piano and a Microphone tour, when he played the song as part of the set in his first show at Paisley Park on January 21st of 2016. However, I will tell you this, and maybe some of you guys didn't know this, that if you listen closely to the song I Hate You, you're going to hear a synth line that was borrowed from this song in that track. So just some homework to jot down and try out later. Write down I Hate You, go listen to that song, and you're going to hear the synth line from this song Baby in that song. Again, the song was first recorded in 1976 at Moon Sound Studios and in Minneapolis, re-recorded at the record plant in Sausalito, California, and then overdubbed and mixed at Sound 80 in Los Angeles, which is kind of the status quo for a lot of the songs in this album. Of course, it's Prince on all vocals and instruments. If you don't consider Patrice Russian's input important in this process, I don't know. Here it is. You're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's For You on Funkatopia, and here it is, song number 6. There's only 9 songs here, so we're getting close here. But here it is, song number 6 on Prince's debut album. It's the song Baby. So here it is. Enjoy. And that was Baby, which is a fantastic track number 6 on this 9-track album For You, Prince's debut album. For those of you just tuning in on the Funked Up app, yes, we are actually broadcasting right now to the Funked Up app. We were on Facebook for a little while. We got kicked off because we're playing all this copyrighted music, even though we're ASCAP licensed. Facebook doesn't give us any way to justify it. Somehow we're on YouTube still. But once I stop this live video and it starts processing, that will end very shortly as well. Most people are watching on mixcloud.com/Funkatopia and listening on the Funked Up app, which you may be on as well, on the Purple Yoda Radio. If you are just learning about Purple Yoda Radio, I can tell you that you want to leave this installed on your phone because it is 24/7 Prince when I'm not talking, which is very rarely. I don't typically talk on this radio station. We just figured out how to broadcast to it just yesterday. Was it, Jeff Page? I think it was. Anyways, that was Baby. Very, very cool song. And there you have it. So now we move on to track number 7 on the album, the song My Love Is Forever. Now, as you can notice, one of the patterns that you're noticing, with the exception of Just As Long As We're Together, most of the songs fall within that 3 to 4 minute range. I think there's only a couple songs that don't. And that was absolutely at the insistence of Owen Husney, because he kind of felt like these, you can't have these long songs like this. You can't. They're not radio friendly. It's just not going to work. Now, what's funny about that is that the 2 singles that they released off of this album are Soft and Wet, which still falls into that time range, but it's not an appropriate song by any stretch of the imagination, no matter how you try to twist the lyrics and try to get somebody to believe it's about something else. And Just As Long As We're Together, which is over 5 minutes long. So it already falls out of the radio time slot. So it is what it is. But here it is. We have this song, My Love Is Forever, which clocks in just over 4 minutes, more or less. And lyrically, this song just gushes with confessions of love that he has for this woman. I mean, the gushy stuff that the ladies love, obviously. I'm far removed from being able to conjure these types of chants and words, but lyrics are, you're always on my mind, day and night, baby, all the time. You mean so much to me. A love like ours just had to be. You're the wind and the rain. You've got a river that takes away my pain. Is this the river that he wants to play in? I'm trying to remember. And the sky that's oh so blue. You're everything, girl. Don't you know I need you? You are the only thing that keeps me going. You are the only thing that keeps my love alive. You are the only thing that I'll ever need. You don't have to worry. You see, my love is forever. All right. So there's a little bit of something here that you need to understand. First off, while Chris Moon is given credit for Soft and Wet, many don't know this, but Chris Moon also co-wrote this song, My Love Is Forever. Now, at the time, there was a lot of contention about this track between him and Prince about who wrote what in regards to this track. And it was eventually settled financially after the album was released. And considering, when you look back, if you've missed this part of the story, but considering that Prince... I'm sorry, let me take this back. Considering that Chris had put the royalties that he was making for Soft and Wet up for auction on eBay, he is obviously a fan of it. It's pretty obvious that he's a fan of receiving payments up front, as opposed to receiving residual payments like royalties, especially since he knew that Prince might not get huge. Like, he may not be successful. You never know. I mean, accepting that you're okay with receiving royalties at this point, being that it's Prince's first album, ultimately was a gamble. It really was a gamble, especially when you're not even sure, if it's going to be released as a single or whatnot. For somebody like Chris Moon, it's a gamble. But a lesser known part of this agreement with this song was that Prince would concede and give Chris Moon full writing credit for the song Make It Through the Storm. Most of you guys have heard this song before, but it's called Make It Through the Storm. But so it was basically a toss-up. Chris said, I will take my name off of this song right here. I'll take my name off of this song, My Love Is Forever, and you put me as the only writer on the song Make It Through the Storm. Prince was like, fine. Probably explains why Make It Through the Storm still remains unreleased. I just a guess, if I had to guess. If Make It Through the Storm does get released, Chris Moon, as far as the profit and credit, would get the entire chunk of that. And let's just look at it from a technical standpoint. Since none of the parties involved currently between the family members with the estate and Primary Wave have any vested interest in releasing this track and handing money over to Chris Moon, I can probably say this with confidence that Make It Through the Storm will probably stay nice and dusty in the vault for many years to come. I'm just guessing. I know negativity. No. The song, let me just stop because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but the song was originally just called Love Is Forever. Let's talk about the song. Let's not talk about all this ridiculousness. The song was originally called Love Is Forever and was changed to My Love Is Forever. And Chris Moon said that when he wrote the song was about a girl that he slept with for a year, but they never had sex. Prince wasn't a big fan of that overtone, so he kind of got a hold of it and changed things around to his liking. And you heard the lyrics that I read earlier. It basically became a pop rendition, complete with Oberheim synths, and which Patrice may have had a hand in also, and leaning way more towards disco than what it had originally been intended. Now, this is actually the second time. That I have pointed out that a song kind of falls in the line of disco. I'm using air quotes for those listening on Funked Up. So when I sound like this, disco, that means I'm using air quotes. And the reason why I mentioned this and why I want to stop for a second on disco is because this is 1979 and it is not a good time for disco at this point in 1979. While I was only 11 years old in 1979, here's what I can tell you. I remember this. It was on the disco was on the, I remember Saturday Night Fever. I remember all the craziness that went with it. I remember the vibe in the 70s and how in the I remember all that. I had bell bottoms, actual bell bottoms, not the recreations that they have now. We actually had bell bottoms, with the big collars and whatnot. I remember all this stuff, but disco was on the way out at this point. And it technically started with an event that happened on Thursday, July 12th, 1979, an event called the Disco Demolition Night. I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to remember this, but thousands of people brought their disco albums to a White Sox baseball game at Comiskey Park in Chicago. And it was like thousands of people. And I can't remember the DJ's name. Maybe one of our producers can look it up, but I can't remember the DJ's name. But they were all kind of rabid, not like rabid, like Howard Stern type of level of rabid, but he was still a really, really big DJ at that time. And all these thousands of fans brought their disco albums and they were hurling these disco albums out onto the baseball field like Frisbees. And then once they all kind of got gathered and put into a pile, this DJ didn't just set fire to these albums. He literally destroyed them using explosives. And it was so insane and out of hand. It put Woodstock 99 to shame. It was so, not necessarily, that was not true. But it was so out of hand that even a riot ensued afterwards. It was just because there was so much that was involved with disco. It wasn't just a style of music. There was a lifestyle that was attached to disco. So it kind of felt like certain members of society were kind of being attacked, and it just felt really icky. But anyways, it was significant, and it was an insane publicity stunt. And I might add, crazily, haphazardly, it was endorsed by MLB, the Major League Baseball. It was endorsed. I mean, White Sox put it on like it was an after fireworks show or something, like after game fireworks show. It was just weird. Anyways, luckily, this song here that we're talking about, which is My Love Is Forever, had a little more going for it than that. I mean, it had a little more going for it than just a disco sound, because it also had funk that was threaded through the beat. It even had an element of rock that was buried in the guitar work. I mean, this song ultimately stood the test of time, but unfortunately, this song never got played live. So most people don't really know this song unless they're fans of the album. So technically, this song just kind of just set up camp here. But here it is. We're going to play it for you anyways. The song is called My Love Is Forever. And again, you're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's album For You, which is his debut album, right here on Funkatopia and the Funked Up app and Mixcloud. And it's insane. It's just a lot of stuff. So here it is. My Love Is Forever, right here on the Funkatopia radio show. Next track, on track now.
Day and night, baby, all the time.
I just can't process how amazing this album was. Even back, I mean, it's just it should have done way better. And I think this album just gets better with the more listens that you do. I think the more that you actually listen to the album, the better it sounds. It's just the songs just grow on you. They all have a really, really great vibe. And man, it's just such a friggin' great album. It's just so incredible. All right. So we only got 2 tracks left on this album and we're done with this album chat. I hope you guys have enjoyed the album chat. If you guys have enjoyed the album chat, please shoot me an email and let me know what you think. Just send it to shout@funkatopia.com. That's SHOUT at funkatopia.com. Don't forget to leave out the A, FUNKATOPIA.com. Prince used to leave the A out of Funkatopia all the time. Luckily, he got it right a few times. But sometimes he would put funk and then topia. And so I appreciated the shout out. And, you know, it is what it is. Don't forget to leave the A out if you send me an email. I want to hear it because I want to do these first albums again. This one, Prince and Dirty Mind. I want to do these albums, the album chats all over again. That's my goal. I'm not going to do, I've already done all 50 plus albums, just so we're clear, in case you didn't know that, including the ones like Apollonia 6. And we did the Times album. So we've done a lot. I've done a lot. So I've already done 50 plus album chats, but I wanted to redo these early ones because new information just keeps coming out. Like every single time that Dwayne Tudall puts out a book, I'm like, God dang it. I got to freaking do all this stuff all over again because there's so much information that's important to the story and it kind of disproves some of the things that were previously said. It's a whole process. So anyways, that all being said, we are here in the middle of Prince's debut album for you, redoing the album chat, brand new, live. If you're hearing this right now on August 5th, you're listening to it live. This is not recorded. This is live. Just like Memorex, it is friggin' live. And I'm trying to chat with you guys in between songs, but it is what it is. Anyways. That was My Love Is Forever. And again, we've only got 2 songs left. What's funny about the song My Love Is Forever is that right on the other side of that track is this song, So Blue, which is a tale of woe and misery of love lost. Man, that all happened so fast. He goes from My Love Is Forever to I had everything I needed, but now my life is so blue. You meant the world to me, but now you're gone and I'm so blue. Even though the sun is shining, I spend my day crying over you. Oh yeah, I spend my day crying over you. Yeah, it's pretty much a 90-degree what just happened. It's basically what it boils down to. According to an interview that I did with Owen Husney, Prince was inspired to write this song after an argument that Prince had with Owen that led to Prince storming out, which has happened more than once in Owen and Prince's story. Because another part of this that's not part of the script here, is that Owen and Prince, there's a lot of stuff that I said tonight that's not on script, but Owen and Prince were roommates. So when Owen agreed to manage Prince, he flew Prince out to Los Angeles, and Owen Husney and Prince lived together. I'm not kidding you. And one of the questions that I asked Owen Husney was, how was Prince to have as a roommate? And I'll let you guys go find the interview and find the answer to that question yourself, because it was a funny answer. But anyways, this was another situation where Owen Husney and Prince were arguing, and Prince stormed out. And the main way that he dealt with his anger, the main way that Prince always did it, was he just writes music. He kind of puts his feelings on paper, and that's how he expresses himself. It's also how he expresses his love. It's also how he expresses his sadness. It's also how he pulls himself through his depression. Everything that Prince did, and I did not know him, even though I met him a few times, I did not know him personally and have discussions with him, but I can tell you that just pulling the themes out of the music and the lyrics that he's written for us over the decades that he's given us, he really deals with a lot of his life situations through his music. So it's not a surprise. But all that being said, Prince storms out during a argument that Owen Husney and him have. And a few days later, Prince invites Owen Husney over to his house because they live in separate residences at this point in time. And they, as friends, sit on the kitchen floor with the tape player, and Prince plays him this song right here that I'm about to play called So Blue. Now, Owen Husney admits that the song is not about him. It's about a jilted lover. But he said the theme is basically, okay, let's back up. Let's look at the situation and figure out a better way to manage this situation. That's essentially what the core of the song is. And now this song in particular had a very rough start when it came to the live performances of the song. Kind of going down another little bit of a rabbit hole. And I hope that you guys are appreciating these rabbit holes that I'm kind of going down here, but kind of going down another little bit of rabbit hole. When Prince put together the showcase at the Capri Theater, he could have chosen, he absolutely could have. Raywin just asked this question. This is funny that this is coming up right now in the chat area. But essentially, Prince put together this showcase at Capri Theater. The Capri Theater show was 3 nights. Or it was 2 nights or 3 nights. I want to say it's 3 nights. I don't know if Rodney's here or not. He can kind of confirm this. The first night was for them to kind of work out some of all their kinks. And the second night was the night that they were going to be revealing themselves on the show. So they were going to be playing in front of record executives and whatnot. And that's how the Capri Theater show was supposed to work out. But instead of choosing studio musicians to make sure the show went over as professional as possible, Prince went with his gut and he chose his friends instead. So he chose Bobby Z on drums. He brought his friend Andre Anderson over on bass, who you guys know as Andre Simone. Des Dickerson was on guitar, Gail Chapman, and Dr. Fink on keys. Now, that is a collective that is legendary in hindsight, is a great, great band, but it was not the best lineup for those first shows in those early days, primarily because of the lack of practice. He could have went with somebody that was maybe a little bit more familiar with what was going on. All that being said, they had massive sound issues the entire show. It was like dropouts and buzzing that was going, lots of cable problems and whatever. John Bream, again, who worked for the Minnesota Star at the time of those shows, he reported that both Des Dickerson and Andre Simone had wireless guitar setups, which weren't really great back then. They were fine, but they weren't like fantastic. But they used it as an opportunity to kind of run out into the crowd, energize people, and kind of get people going and whatnot. And that added more sound issues like feedback and echoes. And ultimately, the press was like, "This is really kind of unnecessary showmanship. This is not really what needs to be happening here." And also, Des Dickerson said, now this is conflicted here because Des Dickerson said that Prince's shyness caught up to him at the show. I actually have this quote written down. Des said, "All I remember is Prince spending most of the evening with his back facing the audience. And in between songs, he would mumble into the mic with his eyes closed." That sounds very, very similar to Jim Morrison and the Doors. I think like all these artists that really kind of blossom on stage, they all start with their back to the audience. And you want a personal story? My first show that I ever performed, I did the exact same thing. We were playing in a band, mostly playing Billy Idol songs and whatever. And my first show was at this pool party that had like about 100 people there. And I could not turn around and face the audience. I was like looking at the drummer the whole time. And the drummer was like staring at me going, turn around now. I was so embarrassed in that moment that I remember saying to myself, that's never going to ever happen again. And it never did. My show completely changed. I fought through it, and now I'm completely comfortable on stage. I can walk up on stage and not have any issue whatsoever. Hopefully some of that is evident here. I don't know. Now, all that being said, and Des saying that, Prince turned his back on the audience most of the show, surprisingly, there was an alternate report that conflicted with that. It was one of the Warner Brothers executives. I don't have the name in front of me, but he said the complete opposite of what Des had noted. He said Prince was literally climbing over amplifiers and electronic equipment, going from one place to another to create these sounds. I just couldn't believe I was watching this. There was something absolutely genius taking place. It was totally different to anything that I had ever really experienced before. I knew that something in there was magic, but I didn't know what it was. So how that show went or was perceived was totally in the eye of the beholder, I would imagine. I guess Des was running in the stage and whatever, and compared to what he was doing, maybe he felt like Prince was being more reclusive. I don't know. All that being said, the issues that they were having sound-wise, we're getting back to the song for So Blue. The issues that they had during that Capri Theater performance really kind of raised their head in a dramatic fashion when it came to this song, So Blue, because this song has a more jazzy feel to it, and it kind of requires a little bit more concentration and a little bit more precision. And those were two things that were really not prevalent that night. So it really kind of ended up crashing and burning with because when you're trying to do jazz stuff and you got to be a little bit more exact, and you're dealing with echoes and feedback, and you're not sure if everybody is where they're supposed to be, anyways. In hindsight, Des Dickerson did agree with John Bream, who said that they were definitely overdoing it. As far as Prince's take on this song, So Blue, he told John Bream, it's like 3 Times a Lady. That was a song that just couldn't be stopped. It just broke everywhere. It didn't matter that they were black or whatever. Sometimes I'm tempted to just not do another single like Soft and Wet and just do something out of the ordinary. And then if that hits, then people would, I guess, realize I don't want to be trapped into a particular thing that would be hindering, because I would like to do a lot of different things. So here it is. We want to check it out. It is a song called So Blue. It is the next song on this album, and there's only one more to go after this. So enjoy it. Not too long, about 4.5 minutes, but check it out. Here it is, So Blue, right here on the Funkatopia Radio Show. You're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's For You on Funkatopia. Here it is, So Blue.
Even though the sun is shining, I spend my day crying over you. don't you know I spend my nights all alone, talking to myself. Oh, I'm so blue. And every day the feeling gets stronger. Ooh, oh. And who's to say just so much longer I can spend my nights all alone, talking to myself and just crying over you. I guess I just spend my life so blue.
Yep, and that was it. That was a song So Blue, which means that we only have one more song left in this album chat. I can't believe it. We made it all the way through. I told you that the original one that I had done for this album chat was only an hour and change. I think maybe an hour and 20. I think I have to go and look. And I knew. I called Jeff Page. I texted Jeff Page and I said, this is going to be a long album chat. It's like 29 pages. I knew that it was going to take forever to get through it, but we're already over 2 hours, which is shocking. This is about where I thought we would be, is about 2.5 hours to get through this album chat. I hope you guys are having a fun time. I will absolutely check the emails. If you send me an email to shout@funkatopia.com, if you want me to do the second album, Prince's self-titled Prince album, in the same exact fashion that I'm doing this one, I'll be happy to. It takes a little time to get these things together, but it's fun. I've had a great time, and now that I know that it actually works, and we can do it from an audio standpoint, it's worth it. It absolutely positively is worth it. So that all being said, let's move on now to the final song, the very last track on the album, I'm Yours. Now, like I mentioned, and the purposeful placement and the impact of the very first song for you, the title track, what he wanted you to hear. He wanted you to hear his vocal work. He wanted you to hear it. This is the song that Prince chose to close his debut album with. It was originally going to be from the first configuration that we saw, just to kind of go back and refresh your memory. It originally was going to be the Sondheim song, or the Judy Collins version of Send in the Clowns, which was going to be a Prince version. I assume since he did most of this album, all this album in falsetto, that he would have done Send in the Clowns and falsetto. That would have been weird. I would love to hear it. Obviously, it's recorded. So it exists somewhere. It exists in that vault. Prince singing Send in the Clowns. Just so we're clear, he recorded it. It exists somewhere. Secondly, the other configuration, the other configuration is the Amber Eyes, that's the name of the song. Amber Eyes was the second configuration that the album was going to end with. Ultimately, the one that he settled on is this one right here, I'm Yours. Now, Prince must have had a good time recording this song, because you can definitely tell by the energy of the track. He also felt very comfortable in the studio overall. By the time the whole process of For You was done and completed, he he definitely was in a much better place as far as his work in the studio and his confidence as far as recording is concerned. Prince said of his studio work, "For me, there's nothing like working in the recording studio. It's satisfying. It's like painting. You begin with the conception and keep adding instruments and laying tracks down. Soon, it's like the monitors are canvas. The instruments are colors on a palette, and the mics and board are brushes. I just keep working it until I've got the picture, or rather the sound that I heard inside my head when it was just an idea." Now, what's interesting about this song is that even though it's the last track that he chose to close the album with, he's never even played this song live until the first time in 2009, over 30 years after it was originally released. And to be clear, that makes it the record holder. Actually, it's not 30 years, it's 40 years. No, 2009, 30 years. And to be clear, that makes it the record holder in Prince's catalog for the longest period of time between when a song was released originally and the first time it was played live. So after that 2009 performance, that it was 30 years. So that's the only song that's like, that is the oldest song in that regard. And of course, it's going to stand because he's no longer with us. But after that 2009 performance, he then played it again and for the final time in April of 2014 at Paisley Park. Now, lyrically, the song maintains par for the course on his, lustful anecdotes. Here's some lyrics. "Up until the other day, there remained an empty space within my bed. Then I took one look at you and all the things that we could ever do dance within my head. Never have I ever made love before. Never have I wanted to till now. Lover, can't wait. Can't you see I want you more and more? Take me, baby, I'm yours." So ultimately, the theme stays the same. And the album ends with his wanton lust and desire. So no surprise there. And it goes without saying that it's Prince on all vocals and instruments. And here it is. We're here. We made it. The final track. We're going to talk about some of the production work after this. That's not long. Trust me. It's just kind of a closing who did what. But here it is. The final track that closes Prince's debut album, For You. The song is I'm Yours. Once again, you're listening to the expanded album chat for Prince's For You on Funkatopia and, of course, on the Funked Up app. And of course, on Mixcloud right now, was Facebook, no longer Facebook, still kind of YouTube. I don't know where we're all at right now, but definitely on the Funked Up app and definitely on Mixcloud. It's all here. But anyways, here it is, the last song on the album. And we're done with this album chat for the most part. I'm Yours right here on the Funkatopia radio show.
still more. Can't you see I want you more and more? Take me this way, yeah.
Oh man, and there you have it. Oh my gosh. I was just that bass. Oh my God, that bass guitar. It's doing these rock undertones, but there are just these runs that happen, especially in that large instrumental section towards the end where it's like, oh my God. I don't think I've ever heard that bass because this is the first time I think I've ever listened to that song with headphones where it was really loud enough and it was balanced in a way that I could really hear it really well. That was crazy. Oh my God. That all being said, wow, we just made it through the full album chat of Prince's For You, the entire album. And we went through every single one of the tracks. If you missed any of the show, don't worry about it. It's going to be, the video is going to be edited and posted in its entirety. So if you missed anything, you're going to be able to check it out. We'll make sure that you guys are going to have some way to be able to get to it. It's going to be friggin' awesome. It's great. We've been doing it for about 2.5 hours now. That's kind of where we're going to end up here. And then, of course, if you're listening on the Purple Yoda radio show, we're going to put it back up. All the music is going to come back on. If you've never listened to Purple Yoda radio, you need to keep this on like 24/7. It is 24/7 Prince. It's got all the greatest hits as well as the deep tracks from all the albums, including stuff that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So it's definitely, it's fantastic. But there you have it. That was Prince's album For You. But before we go, we probably should reflect on the production team that was behind the scenes for the album For You, not for this broadcast. If you want the production team for this broadcast, you're listening to them. It's me, Mr. Christopher with Funkatopia. I am the production team for this show. That all being said, as far as the album For You, here is the production team as we know it. Prince as the producer, arranger, engineer, and he also did, many don't know this, the dust cover design. Also, as executive producer on this album, Tommy Vicari. He was also the engineer and remixer, and he has worked with people like Quincy Jones and Gino Vanelli and George Duke and Barbara Streisand. So he was all over the mix. We mentioned to you before David Rivkin, who was the vocal recording engineer. He's uncredited for it, though. Once again, not surprising. I keep saying it's Bobby Z's brother, but you may also know his work with Lips Incorporated. You guys remember Funky Town, The Jets, Elvis Costello. David Rivkin worked with a lot of different folks. Patrice Rushen did all the synth programming, and she is also uncredited. Again, the same Patrice Rushen who is sending you forget you nuts. Actually, forget me nuts, but it sounded better that way. Charles Veal did the string arrangements on the song Baby. He's also uncredited. Steve Fontano, who was the assistant engineer on this album, he has worked with Pat Travers, Lenny Williams, and Santana. Some other folks, Dave Roeder was the assistant engineer. Mike Reese did the mastering. Bernie Grundman, that name sound familiar? He also did the mastering on the 1984 reissue of this album as well. The art direction was done by Jeff Farmakes. It's Farmakes. I don't know how you pronounce that. He was working for a company called The Ad Company. And then the photography for the album was done by Joe Giannetti. Ultimately, Prince had done something completely different with this debut album. That's your production team. And this album would obviously set the stage for many things to come, but as we would learn, no two albums would be the same. Prince told John Bream in 1980, they didn't understand that we are trying to bridge the worlds of rock, funk, jazz, and whatever. The critics were led to believe that we would be laid back because of the albums. They thought we were gay or freaks, but we're wild and free. It's no holds barred. And thank God for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this album chat for Prince's album For You. Let me know what you thought on Facebook. Even if you didn't get to watch it on Facebook, send me an email at shout@funkatopia.com. Again, that's shout, SHOUT, at funkatopia.com, FUNKATOPIA. And I'd like to hear what you said or what you think. There's more to come. And just so we're clear, just so we can kind of get it out there, Funkatopia, Funked Up, Purple Yoda Radio, and Funkatopia Live are in no way affiliated or endorsed by Paisley Park or the estate of Prince Rogers Nelson yet. Right now, thank you guys so much for joining in. I got to tune out, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We will turn your radio broadcast back over to the 24/7 Prince. So if you're still in that Friday night mode, make sure that you turn on Purple Yoda Radio. All you got to do is download the Funked Up app. It is on Google Play and also on Apple Store as well. It is ASCAP licensed, so you can feel good that when you're listening to the music, you know that the artists are getting compensated for that play. So listen to your heart's content. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. It's Purple Yoda Radio. So I'm going to stop the broadcast on Purple Yoda Radio. Thank you so much for everything. We'll see you guys later. Meanwhile, good night. As for you fine folks over there on Facebook and YouTube, I don't know why YouTube is still playing this video. YouTube should probably cut once the YouTube video stops and they start processing the video and putting it through the copyright checks, the video will get nixed, or all of those individual pieces, all those individual music pieces will be muted. So if you're a member of patreon.com/Funkatopia, you will be able to get the unedited version of this. But I'm going to edit it down anyways, take out some coughs, take out the pre-show and all that stuff, and take out this stuff and put it up just in case you missed anything. And it's also going to be up on albumchats.com, princealbums.com. Yes, that's a site where I've actually been working on for a few years now, but I was going to transfer all the album chats over there. But during this process, I wanted to kind of recreate some of these album chats. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So expect to see this posted up onto SoundCloud, which will then be posted up on princealbums.com or albumchats.com, site that's still being built. But thank you so much. I love all you guys. Thank you for spending your Friday night here, and turn it back over to the music. please go to Purple Yoda Radio right now. All you got to do is just go download the Funked Up app and connect it to your Bluetooth devices and just jam out. And just jam out. Have a good time. And hope you have a fantastic Friday night. Good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see you for the second album, Prince. I'm assuming that's what you